Hey, what's going on, guys? Joel's back with another reasoning sesh where I challenge the status quo of the wisdom of the world and the church by diving deep and analyzing the ancient scriptures and applying them practically to situations in our present day. And today I'm talking about the fact that you have a covenant with Source, and that literally is a blood covenant, and it's signed on the very palms of your hands.
Come now and let us reason together. Come now, we can talk it over.
But before I begin, I'm just going to say that if you like these videos, give it a thumbs up. And hey, if you keep watching my videos, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button so you're notified of when I release new videos, because this message is literally accelerating. I'm not even going to try and slow it down and get in the way of Source, because the pressure is up and this dam is going to be breached any moment now. But with that being said, let's jump right into today's text. In reading from the oracles of Isha, Yahweh is talking to his covenant nation, and he says, "But Zion has said, Yahweh has forsaken me, and my Lord has forgotten me." But then he says, "Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget you. Behold, I have graven you upon the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me." Now this is literally demonstrated in the lines on our own hands. And what this is literally the sign that Source has made with humanity. Because in the old days, when people would meet and form covenants, they would literally cut their hands. And when they would bleed, they would tie their hands together so that the blood would mingle. And that literally was like, my blood is your blood. Whatever I have, literally whatever I have is now yours, and whatever you have is now mine. We are literally one and the same. And that kind of agreement even went deeper than family ties, because like if it came down to the other person or your sibling whose life was in danger, the obligation was literally on you to uphold the covenant with the other person. And this is the kind of agreement that Source has with us, the kind of love and the kind of life energy that we can literally tap into, because this is our right. You know, in the first book of the Hebrew scriptures, Bere'shit, or Genesis according to the Greek translation, literally the word means beginnings. Elohim said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Now the root of that in the Hebrew is literally the word shadow. So we are literally the shadows of Elohim in this physical shadow dimension. "And let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." Literally all the levels of physical creation. And that's a shadow of how Elohim has dominion over all levels of creation itself, all dimensions. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim created him, male and female he created them. Now that verse literally says that Elohim is neither male nor female, and even the linguistics in Hebrew point this out, because Elohim is the masculine plural of the feminine noun Eloh. So that's how we actually exist, both male and female. And actually defining God as purely masculine is actually not only limiting our experience of how Source can manifest in our own lives, but it's actually the gravest insult to women itself. But that's a topic for a whole other episode, and I will be covering that, because this whole show is to challenge the status quo of the wisdom of the world and the church. But in the second chapter, we see here that Yahweh, Elohim, formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man, Adam, became a living soul. So this was done on the 6th day, but if you go 3 days and 3 nights earlier, on the 3rd day, Elohim said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear," and it was so. But in that time there was no rain upon the earth, but it says that there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. So it was in that day that Elohim took that moist earth and literally cast his shadow or his form into it. Like when someone's making a plaster cast, they literally put the form into a bucket of this substance, and then once that substance hardened, there's a shadow or a void of that shape in that substance, and that creates a mold from which the master of the plaster can literally pour the plaster into that mold and create the exact replica of whatever shape they're making. But that shadow that Elohim made when he cast his image into the earth, he literally spread himself out over the earth. And this is paralleled in the story of Eliyahu and Elisha. Both of them raised a young boy from the dead by stretching themselves over the body. And in Elisha's case, it says he went up and lay upon the child and put his mouth upon his mouth and his eyes upon his eyes and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. And that mouth to mouth is so that we can speak as God speaks. The eyes to eyes are so we can see as God sees. And the hands to hands are so we can do as Elohim in this world. The blood of the cast of the man was this red earth, but the blood of Elohim, of divine source, is light. And when that breath entered Adam, there was literally a quickening in him. And when he became a living soul, that light in him literally shone out through his face. That's what the root of Adam means. Dam is blood, and the aleph preceding it means the blood in his face. That light was literally shining out through his face. Like, you know, when you put a light behind your hand in the dark, you can see that light shining through and it's glowing red. That was the original nature of Adam. He was literally clothed in this light that was shining through his skin. And when he would walk with Elohim in the cool of the day, it would be like two pillars of light just walking through the garden. But of course, when he partook of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, what happened? He looked down and he realized he was naked. He wasn't protected by this divine light. And right there, he knew that if anything happens to me, man, my life's in danger. So this is the state of fallen mankind. And it's all because we believed the lie of the serpent who told us we can be like gods, we can be like Elohim and know the good from evil and not have to rely on him to fulfill his part of the covenant. We can just do it all by ourselves. And look where that's gotten us as a species, as a society, and look what it's done for this world itself. Some kind of dominion when we're chasing after knowledge rather than life itself. But when we forsake the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and we actually pursue that tree of life, we realize that we have our side of the covenant to fulfill, and so does Elohim. So it's a harmony. It takes two to tango. And when we realize that, we actually come into submission to the pure perfection that Elohim has. And because of that, we are transformed from the inside out. But we got to let go of that paradigm of pride, because if we think we can do it all by ourselves, there's no surrender. And we can't allow Source to actually bring that potential of infinity into our life experience. So we got to learn to surrender. And you know, people with this relationship with Source, like I'm talking about churchgoers here, like you'll see them in a worship service and all of a sudden, like without stimulus, like they'll just raise up their hands, right? What is that? What's going on there? Well, in the old days when people would have that covenant, they would literally make sure that that cut scarred afterwards. Like they would agitate it and make sure that it showed, because you know 20 years later you haven't seen your blood brother, and then all of a sudden, like in a room of like 100 people, you think you see him walk in. What would you do? You raise that hand, and on that hand is that scar, and you make eye contact, and then he raises his hand, and boom, right there you see that connection. That is the evidence of this covenant. And when that is testified for, then all the other stuff that comes with that covenant, all the agreements, all the blessings, all the provisions and abundance, all come into effect. And we have that with Source if we've actually acknowledged the living Logos as Lord and as Master, and we're not trying to run our lives ourselves. We can come boldly before the throne of grace and quite frankly say, I have an agreement with you. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. Everything that Source has, he's given to us, but we have to receive it and not walk in this I can do it all mentality. So when we acknowledge Source and we allow that potential to download into our hearts and through our lives, we literally become the hands of Source in this world, and we're able to manifest something beyond our own ego's wildest dreams, because that infinite potential is our destiny. And that is the desire that Source wants for all of us. And that's the desire that has literally been planted in our hearts from the very beginning. We just have been programmed not to be in tune with that. But that literally is the potential that Source has given to each one of us to tap into and literally bring the kingdom of heaven alive into this physical dimension of duality, and access the Garden of Eden once again, and all the rights of the covenant that were made with Adam in that 6th day of creation. So tap in and enter into that Sabbath, that perpetual rest in Source, because creation's already done. We just got to tap into which level of creation we want to experience for ourselves. So be blessed, fam. I love you from the bottom of my heart. I really do. I really do. And I decree blessings and abundance upon you from the infinite bounty of Source. I'll check you in another reasoning sesh. Joel signing out once again. Agape. Salaam. Namaste. Shalom. But in the second chapter we see here that Yahweh